Hello everyone and welcome to episode 87 of the Cherry Heart podcast. I am Sandra and you will find the show notes for this podcast on my blog, which is cherryheart.co.uk. You can find me around the web as Cherry Heart and I'm on Instagram as Sandra Cherry HRT. So hello, how are you? I'm joining you at a different time today. Normally I record my podcasts in the morning, sort of the first thing I do after the school run and such like is over, but obviously there is no school run at the moment. And yes, we were back into homeschool this week, which I was kind of dreading because I really looked forward to the Easter holidays coming so that we could kind of chill out and not have to worry about trying to get our heads around what we were doing with schooling. So the Easter holidays have been lovely, and yeah, so I was kind of dreading that getting back into it, which we started on Monday. It's Wednesday today for me at the moment. Yeah, but it's been all right actually. It wasn't as bad. I think sort of the first 2 weeks that we had before Easter, when the schools were first closed and we got into this lockdown, I think because obviously no one had much notice, I think the school kind of just threw a load of stuff online, and so that people had plenty of things to be getting on with, but from the other end it just sort of felt a bit like there was a whole mass and we were bombarded with things and it took a while to sort through it all. But now that we're sort of back and we've had the Easter holidays, the information's coming through much more sort of lesson structure, so it's much easier now because we'd sorted out a timetable and everything before. We're all quite organised about it, we had sort of specific slots and we got up and got on with it. So now we're finding a way a lot easier with it now, so we just stick to our little timetable and then we just find each segment of work. And so yeah, so it's been a bit smoother, which is good, very good, because yeah, it was a bit of a headache before. Yeah, so I'm hoping that, we'll settle into a nice rhythm with that now. It certainly feels like this week's been a bit easier. Obviously it's still difficult to fit in the things I want to do around that, but at the same time I am still able to do some stuff around it. So that's good. But anyway, that was an incredibly long story to tell you that basically homeschool is out for today, so I thought I'd come and... Oh, here he goes. Did you hear that? That was Bert barking. Yes, so school is out for today, so I thought I would come up and record a podcast and then hopefully I'll be able to sort it out tomorrow. So the light is round this side now, so I'm getting quite a bit of glare on this side, so the lighting's probably a bit different and weird today, but there ain't much I can do about it, I'm afraid. So I hope it's not too bad for you. It doesn't look too bad on my screen, so hopefully it's okay. Let's crack on. Let me show you. I was just going to think if there was something else I was going to tell you, and I don't think there is really. Things have been going on for me, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just nice to forget everything you've got going on and just come and chat about this stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to chat away like I normally would, and yeah, I think that'll be nicer. So what have I been up to? I normally do things I've done first, so I think we'll talk about this, which is what I'm wearing. I don't know what that was about. My finished Understated Jumper. That was me trying to talk while also think about what this was called. Yes, it's the Understated Jumper. It's by Hokey Locatelli, and I was also thinking in that staggered bit of talking there that I've left the yarn down at the house, and so I can't tell you what it is. I know it's the Sublime. I spoke about it in my last couple of podcasts when I've talked about it, so if you really want to know, just pop along to show notes. But it was the Sublime. I think it was their Extra Fine Merino in a double knit. And I don't know what the colour name was. I think it was just a number. But yes, let me do the finished garment dance, and I'll show it to you. Here it is. As you can see, it's very wide and oversized and boxy looking. Little tight sleeves, little short sleeves, which I quite like. I'm not sure this shirt is the best thing under it because it's not sure this neckline is the best, and got quite a lot hanging out the bottom here. Anyway, that's not the point. The jumper is the point. I'm kind of wearing it back on my shoulders a bit so that this doesn't flap out, because I roll my shoulders so things tend to flap if I'm not careful. So I kind of wear it back a bit so it doesn't do that too much. So I've got quite a high-low hem happening, but that's just the way I'm wearing it. It's, you know, it's not designed to do that. That's just the way I'm wearing it. So it means the front is quite cropped. I quite like it. It does kind of accentuate my wide hips a little. Not sure that's great, but yes. Just do a 360 for you. Don't know what else you can see. Oh, just there's some detail on the shoulders. So it's a drop shoulder, and then sleeve starts right down there, and big V-neck. Yeah, so not a lot to see other than that, I don't think. I used a 4.5 needle for mine. I can't remember what the pattern needle was in the pattern. It might have been, no, maybe it was a 4 actually. 4 would be right for a double knit anyway, wouldn't it? Yeah, so I went up a needle, partly because I found it seems to work out for garments better if I go up one needle size. So that's what I've done with all my other garments, and that's worked out. Or the ones that have worked anyway, and that's worked out quite well. So I did the same here, but I actually went for quite a large size on this one, and I don't think I needed to go, I mean it's supposed to be oversized, but I've got a lot of oversized here. I think my sizing meant, you know, if I measured, it meant I should have made the medium, and I think I probably would have been fine if I'd stuck to that, but I actually made a large. But it's okay, isn't it? Do you know what? I haven't even measured to see if I have now the correct measurements for the pattern. I don't know. I don't even know if I got gauge either now. Gosh, that's fabulous, isn't it? So helpful. Yeah, I got a fabric that I liked with the 4.5, and from previous experience I figured going up a size would work. And so I just went with it, and now I've blocked it and I've tried it on and it seems to be okay. So I guess that was just lucky. I think I did a tiny bit of swatching. Yeah, I mean, lots of people don't like swatching, and I tend to sort of do it in a kind of half-hearted kind of way and don't do it properly, which doesn't help. But whenever I do a swatch, whenever I knit the jumper, it never seems to match the swatch the gauge I was getting before anyway, so I just figure what's the point? I didn't say that. As someone who has to put a gauge on patterns because, as a guideline, obviously you must always swatch. That's the official line. But if you don't, you sort of take it, it's your own peril, isn't it? So I took that chance at my own peril, and luckily for me this time it worked out. But yeah, so I'm quite happy with it. It's quite thick, I would say, for a double knit yarn. Oh, that was the other reason I was on 4.5mm needles that I was going to tell you, partly because previous experience and a larger needle seemed to work better for me, but also because this just seemed really a plump. It's nice and plump and squishy, but it seemed quite thick for a double knit. So the 4.5 needles suit it much better. I don't think I would have wanted to knit it on a 4. It would have felt quite... There he goes again. Oh, I hope this barking's not too loud for you. Next door's dog has just barked and now it's got told off. It's Lucy lives next door. She's a big black Labrador. And then Bertie runs along, little tiny dachshund, and she barks, whoa, whoa, and he barks. But whenever she barks, he has to go and back her up. Anyway, enough about the barking. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so it was quite thick. So I'm not entirely sure it was 100% the best yarn for this project. I think it might have been a little bit nicer if it was a slightly lighter yarn. It would have made it sort of a little bit more drapey. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so not sure it was absolutely the best yarn. I think something perhaps a little lighter than this particular one would have perhaps suited better, but overall I'm happy. Yeah, so that's good. So that's done. And I don't think I have anything else done to show you. I'm just looking at what I've got. No, I haven't. So let's talk about another thing that you've seen. I'll just give you a quick update. So this is an embroidery project from the lovely Nikki Franklin at the Stitchery, and it's her vintage beehive design, which is gorgeous. And I'm sort of attempting to do it justice. So this is how far I've got. I haven't worked loads on this. I find that I sort of perhaps pick it up and work on it for a few hours, and then I perhaps leave it for quite a few days before I want to do any more again. But I've done the beehive and I've done the foxgloves. I was quite pleased with how they turned out with my French knots. My French knots I learnt how to do using Chrissy Crafts tutorial. Actually, I don't know if she's got a specific tutorial for that, but she did a stitch along last year, and as part of that she did how to do French knots. And then I've got the leaves done, which were in a split stitch. And then I'm trying to do sort of this foliage down here, which I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. So I've taken the, see if it's going to focus on that any better. I've taken the sort of approach of I'll just shove stitches in and hope for the best. I assume it's supposed to be quite rough because it's just random foliage. Yeah, so that's how far I've got on that one, but it's nice. I'm really enjoying it. I don't always fancy doing it, but when I do, it's just a nice little relaxing thing to do, which is what I wanted, so that's good. I've got a fly in here now. Go on, shoo. I've been leaving the door open. It's nice again today, and it was nice last time I podcast, so I leave the door open if I can, which downside is we sometimes hear barking, but then we sometimes get barking anyway if he's in here. Him that I'm talking about, Bertie. But this way it doesn't get sort of too hot, and sometimes you can hear the birds a little bit, I think, so that's quite nice. Right, so what I've started since we last spoke then, let's talk about this one first. I started, see, I'm not sure how I like the look of that on here. I started a granny stripe blanket. They were all the thing a little while ago, weren't they? And it kind of was, you know, I wanted to start one then and I didn't. I held off. And then they've been popping up again. I think with everyone being in lockdown, they're sort of dragging old projects out. See what's bugging me? This one is bugging me. What was I saying? Yeah, everyone was dragging them out, and I was looking at Deb's Tink Hinkman on Instagram, and hers kept popping up, and I was like, oh, I really like it. Maybe I'll do one. And I had a sort of patch where I'd finished this and I didn't really have anything on the go, and I just wanted something completely mindless. I didn't have to think about just the rhythm of the stitches, so I thought I'll go for it. I'll do a granny stripe because I need a blanket that's going to go in my new living room in those sorts of colours. So I pulled out all my sort of stash of bits and bobs that would be vaguely the right colour and brought them all down to the living room and sort of held them up and sort of created a heap that looked like it would work quite nicely. And I started work on it. This is actually my second start, because after that I got some colours I was happy with, all marvellous, and then I started making it, and of course then the old brain kicks in and I've got, which order am I going to do, how's it going to look, oh I don't know, and it wasn't relaxing at all, and it was, I'm very annoying to myself sometimes. So I started this one See, that looks all right, doesn't it? Now, this was bigger and I've taken some rows off because it had gone all wrong and the colour balance wasn't quite right. It was looking very browny and dirty, which wasn't the look I wanted. So I've taken some colours out and I had a little rejig. Let me show you. I'll show you my bag of colours, although I don't know if you'll see what I've got in here very well. I'll show you them quickly in a minute. Let me tell you the very scintillating story about it first. Yeah, so I've started to undo them and use them in the new bit now. And also, I don't know if you can see, my start was a little bit tight. It's sort of curling a bit. I didn't just do a chain start. I sort of started in a slightly different way, a bit like, you know, foundationless, like when you do foundationless trebles, is that what it's called? Where you just work off of the previous stitch and you don't actually do a starting chain. I've done it like that, which normally you can't do because on grannies, because there's a gap. But I came up with a way of doing it, which I quite like. And it was just, I hadn't got it quite right there. So the good thing about restarting is it gave me a chance to redo it. And I've got it nice now, I've got it working nice. So yeah, I was too lazy to do a starting chain and work into that. Yes, so my living room is kind of greeny, duck eggy, bluey, pale colours. But even holding this up here, this is bugging me. There is, this colour is in the living room, it's in the wallpaper of the living room, so this should work, but it's bugging me in this whole overall thing. I wanted it to be quite subtle. I didn't want sort of like really drastic sort of colour changes and things. I wanted it to be quite, almost like a sort of watercolour painting, you know, just sort of dabs of little different bits of colour, but quite sort of washed out and subtle, which I think is kind of working, but from this blooming brown stripe, which is looking even worse on the camera than it looks in real life, I think. And I'd left all of the ends out because I still wasn't completely sure about it, and I thought if I really change my mind I'll just take them off and do it again. And last night I did a whole sort of chunk, like about this much, because I thought, yeah, I'm away now, this is great, I like it, I'm just gonna go for it now. And I started weaving the blooming ends in, and now I'm holding this up here thinking, this blooming brown, I want it out. Oh, that's annoying. So it shouldn't matter, in a whole blanket, if I left that one brown stripe in, would it matter? Matters to me. Try to see how it would look without it now. Trying to visualise the blanket without it. There you go. Which is best, that or that? I don't like the idea of unweaving all those ends though to get all the way back to here. That's more than halfway back. To take that blessed brown out. That's annoying. That's really annoying. I should just leave it, I suppose, but I don't know. There's two forces at work here. My innate laziness that doesn't want to do it, and my uptight, oh, there's a colour I don't like in there, ness. Don't know what that, would you describe? My control freakiness. And yes, my laziness that are at war in my head right now. Anyway, so that was that. Now, yarns, I've got quite a lot. And they're all different kinds. So I've had a few questions on my Instagram. People go, oh, what yarn are you using? You're like, well, which one? Because there's loads in here. What I'm going to do is put a picture on my show notes which has all the yarns, and I'll list them all. So if there's one that I show you that you particularly like and want to know what it is, then you can go and have a look. So this is I'll try and quickly say some of them, but I might not remember the colour names, that's the thing. So that I have left over, that's a Mr. B yarn, that's We're Going on a Bear Hunt. I have that left over from my Elton. This is a gorgeous one from Crafting Treats called Celadon, I think. It's because I've just written out those names for you now, I'm remembering them a bit better. This is Wool Barn, Beach Coma, very subtle, and it's not picking up here very well, but it's a pale minty green. This is Homespun House, If You're a Bird, I'm a Bird. This one doesn't look as nice wound up as it looked in the hank. Skein, whatever, but it is lovely when I crochet with it. This is one I got in my Lay Family Yarns Advent. It's a beautiful grey colour, and it's perfect, the perfect grey. Quite similar to this, isn't it, actually? It's perfect grey for my living room though. I was in two minds whether to put this in because it's got silk in it, so it's quite maybe yak as well, so it's a very nice drapey one, so I probably should use it for something a bit more luxurious, but it was such a perfect colour I couldn't resist putting it in anyway. This one is a Herbs Black Regina one. She doesn't dye yarn anymore, but that was she had that in Christmas time last year. I think it's called Under the Mistletoe. That's a nice sort of minty colour, again not showing up very true. Put it back here, the colour's better. This one's nice. I didn't know whether to put this one in. See, it doesn't look much here, but when you can you see all the subtle tones in it? It's just so pretty. It's so pretty. That's an Eden Cottage yarn one. Can't remember the name. And I'll just show you this one as well because I love this one. This is a Lay Family Yarns. I think it's called Vintage China. And this was, you know, it was a nice enough skein, I thought. But when I picked it up, I thought, oh yeah, this is nice, but I think I've gone off of it a little bit, but it's a nice neutral colour to go. And then I wound it up and thought, wow, that's so pretty. It has got sparkle in it though, which I feel like I've gone off sparkle now a little. I feel like my sparkle days are done. And I think it'd look just as pretty without sparkle, so I don't think it needs it. But yeah. That's really pretty. I really like that one. Again, it's because it's so pretty, I'm kind of in two minds whether I want to just lose it in a blanket, but got to use some of these things. Got to use them. Yeah. Oh, and this was another precious one. Skein Queen. I think this one's called Sledding Day, actually. Again, it's quite a nice drapey one, a bit too good for a blanket really, but just the colours worked, but it is lovely as well. And then I've got a few other oddsments that I'm putting in, and this one I haven't decided about. I might save that and just use it for the border maybe, just because it's neutral-ish. But yeah, there we go. That was like my second or third attempt at colours after I carted about, you know, 1 million down to the house and then carted most of them back again. And oh, actually this is another thing, isn't it? I showed this on my Instagram, but it's my sort of, I don't know, bucket bag. But I actually sewed something. I did this over Easter holidays, and it's a big open box bottom. That's just the marks in the fabric. It's not that I didn't line it up properly, just to be clear. Yeah, it's a nice square shape, and then it's just got these sort of loops at the top, and so you can, it's a bit full at the minute, let's take a bit out. I've rammed these yarns in it and filled it right up. But yeah, you can just sort of pick it up and it kind of scrunches together. but I quite like these sort of the idea of having these little ties on it, and just the fact that you could kind of, you know, when it sits down, it's all like completely open and accessible, and then you can just grab any bit of it just to lift it up and cart it around. Because that's what I find I do with project bags quite a lot. I just, you know, I'm always just lifting them and moving them to wherever I'm working on, so I don't sort of put everything away and close it all up very much, so just grab and go. But I quite like how much I can fit in this. It's quite good, so I might make some more of those if I ever get round to sewing again. It was like a massive event to actually force myself to sew. I've been completely procrastinating over it, I realised. Which I know is because I had living room curtains I had to sew. And every time I thought, oh, it'd be nice to sew something fun, I think, oh, but you really ought to do those living room curtains first. Now I think, oh, I won't do sewing then. Because that's logical, isn't it? But anyway, because it was Easter holidays, I was like, no, sew something fun, and then actually it might get you up and running. And it did, it worked. So after that I did feel like, actually, yes, I can sew things. So I did sew my living room curtains. And they're not finished yet. It was a bit more of a complicated job than I realised. Yeah, I'm changing them round, so it's a big wide curtain and I've got them gathered. So the width is longer than the length, and the length of them is kind of an awkward 3/4 length. So they're longer than the window, but they don't reach the floor, but they kind of hang down over the radiator, and it's always really annoyed me. So I wanted to have full length ones. So I thought, if I put the top, if I unravel it all, not unravel, you know, take all the gathering out of it, that's it, ungather them all, and hang them the other way, I can have the longest bit hanging down. So that's what I've done. So I've turned it round, I've got the gather at the top now, and they're just about wide enough to fit across and still have a little bit of gather. Doesn't look, it's not quite enough gathering really, but it's okay because we hardly ever draw them, not very much anyway. So I've got the side is now the top, that's slightly gathered, and I've hemmed them because they were very long, so I've hemmed them and taken some off. And so we have curtains in the living room, and then I need some sort of tie backs for them. And my original idea was I made some little crochet balls, you know, the little, the Attic 24 little ball pattern. I'd crocheted up a load of those, and I was going to sort of sew them along each edge of the curtain. But I'd sort of lost the will to live once I'd actually managed to do enough sewing to get them up and hung. So I don't know whether to go back and do that at some point when I'm feeling less, you know, when I've got over the trial of doing the curtains, or whether to do some kind of tie back with my leftover material and perhaps just put them on the ties. I don't know. I was thinking of having like literally just tie them, just have 2 strips of fabric and tie them and have it hanging down, and like hooks. Does that make sense? Is this making sense? So if I had a strip of fabric with a hook at the end and another strip of fabric with a hook at the end, so they're coming down like that, and then I tied a knot in them. So the front bit is a tie, but you don't actually untie them, you just unhook it. Do you know what I mean? That was my thought. Yeah, so I don't know quite what I'll do there, but anyway. Moving on. I'm going to put a bit of vloggy footage at the end, but I'm not quite sure how much I've got. Just so you know, because I always forget to mention it, and it just popped into my head, so I thought I'd mention it. What have I got going on here? Mess is what I've got going on here. Yeah, right. You go there. So then the other project that I've started is another garment. I used to be shawl and sock crazy and mitt crazy. Now I'm also garment crazy. So I've only just started. It's crochet. Did I say it's going to be a cardigan? It's going to be a cardigan. And this is an idea I've had little percolating in my little head for a while, and it's based on a cardigan that I bought at a shop. But I really wanted it in a different colour, and they didn't have any other colours that I liked, but I wanted it in a nice sort of pale pinky colour. So I thought I'll make one, because that'll be easy peasy. So I looked for a pattern. I couldn't find anything I quite liked first time round, so I decided yes, I would definitely make one. And I got some yarn and sort of thought about how I'd do it. And then when I was looking again, I think I found some patterns that are closer to what I had in mind. So I'm still going to try and make my own thing up, but if it goes horribly wrong, then at least I've got a backup plan now, because one of those others might do, if I've got the right yarn for it, which I might not have. Succinct as ever. So I am using Baby Alpaca Silk by Drops in colour 1306. It's a sort of very sort of soft sandy pink colour, I suppose. Oh, I love it. And this stuff feels amazing. I'm using it held double because I just didn't fancy making anything with that finer yarn. It's so recommended needle is 3.5, gauge 23 stitches. So it's sort of around a sport weight, I guess. I don't know how they classified it. Maybe it's a sport weight, I'm not sure. Anyway, either way, I'm holding it double. And I just did some swatches of the pattern to sort of to trial out a couple of patterns and try out a couple of hook sizes. And I'm using a 5.5. So that makes it slightly bigger than an Aran, doesn't it? But not quite chunky, I suppose. I don't know. I just went with what seemed to suit the, you know, the fabric I was getting. So I got a fabric that I liked. But yeah, I wanted it to not look too crocheted back and forth in rows. You know, like when you just do trebles, you get a very clear... You get very clear lines, don't you? And I wanted it to look more sort of blended, so it just looked like fabric generally. So I thought this sort of achieved that effect quite nicely. And I'm going to do a pocket, I think. I'm slightly worried about how much yarn I've got. Truth be told. But I was thinking I quite like the idea of pockets. So what would be sensible is if I made it and then see it saw at the end if I had enough yarn to stick a pocket on. That would be sensible, wouldn't it? But what I actually want to do is integrate the pocket. So I'll kind of put the pocket behind, you know, I don't know if you've ever knitted a pocket on. I think this is how they do it. So you sort of knit the fabric and then you knit the pocket flap and then you join the pocket flap in and knit from that, and then you kind of sew it back on the back after. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know whether to go for it and do that so they look how I want them to look, really, and just go for it and risk that I've got enough yarn, or whether to be a bit more sensible about it. I'm not quite sure. That's why I've sort of stopped where I am. That's where my first ball, 2 balls of yarn have got me, and I've kind of procrastinating a bit on it while I think about that sort of pocket thing. But it feels amazing. So yes, so that has been started, and yeah, everything's a kind of a plodding along project at the minute. I haven't got anything that I'm really racing through. So I don't know if that means I'll start something else or not. I don't know. Well, I'm going to leave it there because the time is marching and I don't want them to get too long because I'm having upload troubles. It's a bit of hassle at the moment. So if it's shorter, it's a little bit easier, and I want to leave a bit of space to put some vloggy stuff on. So I'm going to go now, and I will wish you very well for the next couple of weeks till I see you again. I hope you're managing okay in all this. I was going to say I hope you haven't been affected, but I think unfortunately that's not a very likely hope, is it? I think we're all being affected to a greater or lesser extent by this whole COVID-19 business. It's a sorry old business, it is. But anyway, I hope you are doing okay, and I hope you are happy and healthy and safe where you are. And I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, bye-bye. Hey Treble, what you doing? Don't say hello to everyone. Hello Treble. What you doing? Oh, I see. Right in the middle of it. Thank you. You try to make me jump.
Ready?